Last week in the gospel, we heard Jesus say that the most important commandments were to love God with our whole heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. If we look at the readings today, we could say that in a way they kind of exemplify a little bit about what Jesus said then. Now we have two examples, one a negative example and one a positive example. The negative example is that of the scribes. The scribes are supposed to be the leaders of the religion, and they had a very prominent place. They were supposed to serve God and serve God's people. Yet in today's gospel, we hear Jesus saying to them that what you do is you take your prayer robes and you make them longer and you wear them in public where you're supposed to be wearing them in prayer so that people will look at you and thinking like, oh, what prayerful guys we have here. And you like to walk around in the marketplace so everybody will greet you with respect. And you like to take places of honor in banquets and in a synagogue. And you devour the houses of widows. And you take their money. And that's not loving God. It's looking at me. Everybody look at me. It's what it's doing. It's self-interested, it's self-centered, it's self-promoting, and it says nothing about God. We can easily see that when we see some guy in the end zone going, look at me. You want to say to him, do you know how you got there? Of course, it's much easier to see in somebody else than it is to see in ourselves. But other people could tell us about it if we're interested. That's the negative example, where we look at ourselves. The positive example is in the two widows that we hear in the readings today, as well as in the second reading with Jesus. And they tell us something about our relationship with God, and I picked out three things. The first is that a relationship with God is not just a one-time thing, a saying yes. It reminds me of a story I heard years ago about a man who was down and out, but when he came before the congregation, he was a Protestant, and before he came before the congregation, he had become rich. So at this gathering, this worship service, they asked people to come forth and witness, and he was sitting in the front row, and so he came up to witness, and he said, years ago, I was down and out. I only had a couple bucks in my pocket, and I went to a revival. And at the revival, the preacher said, trust in God, give all that you have, and God will give back to you. And so that's what I decided to do. I only had those $2, which I was going to spend on supper, and then I didn't know what. But finally I said, I might as well give it all to God. So I went up and made my witness and gave it all to God. And God rewarded me, and today, I'm a millionaire. Everybody goes, yay. So he goes back to sit down in the front seat. A little old lady behind him leans forward a little bit and says, I dare you to do it again. Something worth thinking about, isn't it? I trusted God when I didn't have anything, but I don't trust him now that I got a lot. And there are different ways of following through on that. But it's not a one-time thing. It's like somebody saying, like a spouse saying to the other, I told you 25 years ago that I loved you. And if that ever changes, I'll let you know. Well, that doesn't quite do it, does it? Don't we need to say that day in and day out? And that's like it is with God. We need to say day in and day out, I choose to be in relationship with you. And not in so many times, the big ways, because those are fewer, but in the little ways. I choose you to be there. I choose to be with you. Relationship with God is not a one-time thing. The second thing we can get out of this is that the widows gave of their substance, not of their excess or their surplus, as the gospel says. Because in the gospel, Jesus notes that there were people coming in who had, lots of money, and he just, poured it in there, and it was like, aren't I great? I just gave a whole bunch of money. And then the widow comes, and it's all she's got, 2 little coins, maybe worth a penny or 2, and without any fanfare, she drops them in and leaves. And in the first reading, we hear that the widow was going to gather some sticks and make some cakes and drink some water, and she and her son were going to die. It's all they had. And Elisha's got the nerve to say, make me a cake too. Well, she did. And in the making of that cake, they lived for a year after that, and then more, but she's giving of what she has. And it's not just so much that it's things, it's who we are. It makes a statement of who we are and what our priorities are. We've heard that before. And so it kind of it's like this, I'm going to make out my budget, and when I get my budget made out, I'll give God what's left over. Or, how would you like it if God gave you what was left over? Or me? Or instead saying, I'm going to make out my budget, and at the top of it is going to be God. I'll figure out what my fair share is, and then I'll go on to pay my other bills, and that's what's important. But it's not just our money, it's our lives. What do we say to one another when we won't turn off the TV or the computer to sit around and have a little conversation? But I like that show. Yeah, you do. Give it up because somebody needs my attention right now. I remember when I was a young priest, I went on a retreat, and there was the retreat preacher was a priest of a contemplative order. And he got up and he said, at one of his conferences, he said, unless you get up early in the morning to pray, you are not serious about prayer. And I thought, boy, you don't know. I am not a morning person. I have never liked getting up in the morning. And I always did my best studying at night in college from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. I got so much done there, and I did some of my best praying at night. Like a journaled prayer, you ever done that? It was good. So don't tell me I got to pray in the morning. But then life happens. And as life happens, I got busier and a little more tired of the things I was called to do, so I get there at prayer at the end of the day and thought I'd fall asleep. Or I'd just say, it's too late. I gotta go to bed. I gotta get up in the morning. So I wouldn't pray that day. And that got to be a real struggle. So since then, I decided I got to get up earlier, like it or not. And so now I get up early. I take care of my physical stuff, eat and all that. And then I sit down and pray. And it's not a struggle. And I get it in every day. And I have never, ever in my life gotten up earlier than I'm getting up early now, except when I work in my dad's bakery. And it's worth it. I go into the rest of my day having started it with prayer. Give God off the top from our priority, whatever that looks like for us, and we'll find different relationship with him because of how we respond to that invitation. It's important. I'm doing it first. That's why one of the geniuses of that adoration chapel back there, it's on the schedule. They're counting on me being there. I got to go. It's a priority. I'm showing up because I said I would. And then when we get there, God can work his grace within us. Give from our substance of who we are. The third thing is this, that God takes whatever it is that we have, even if we think it's just a little, and he makes something out of it. God will make good use out of what we give him. I love that commercial, one of the few I like, but I love the commercial where it starts out by somebody maybe opening the door for someone else. And the person whose door is open, they go and help somebody pick up their stuff. And that person goes and helps somebody else do something else with something else, and everybody helps, and it just moves along. I love that commercial because it's saying kind of this. You never know what one good, kind act is going to do. It kind of grows. We never know what giving God what we have, who we are, what difference that's going to make. Why would a widow who's only got a couple little coins put that money in there? It's not going to make any difference in the paying of the bills. But it does make a difference to her. I'm here. I'm putting this in. I'm trusting in God. And God will do with it something that I can't even ask or imagine. And a lot of what he does is not out there. A lot of what he does is in here. And who we become by making that statement, this is my priority, and let God work with it. So some examples would be this. I don't pray every day and whatever. Okay, fine. How would you like to? I don't know. Okay, how about starting out with 5 minutes? 5 minutes in the morning. Say one decade of the rosary. Read 2 paragraphs of the Bible. Well, that's not much. No? Try it. See what God does with it. Or if you say, I don't know if I can do that. I got to get going in the morning. Okay. Before you turn the key in the car in the morning, say a prayer like this. Oh God, thanks for the beginning of another day. It might be a rough day, and maybe not. And I know I'm going to run into traffic. So I offer you this day all its prayers, works, joys, and sufferings of this day, and I offer them to you, and here we go. Run! And do that every day. And see if God doesn't take that and do something with it. Help us become more aware of his presence. Help us to remember him as the day gets going and life happens. These widows show us parts of some of what it means to be in relationship with God. It shows us that we need to commit ourselves to God more than just once, but every day. We need to give of ourselves. And we need to let God do what God will do in creating us anew. And as we do this, we will find that God is never outdone in generosity.